The year is 2014. A guy named Austin Post has just moved to LA. He's unemployed, sleeps in his friend's closet, and scrounges for quarters to buy beer and cigarettes. He's equipped with nothing other than confidence, charisma, and an eclectic musical background. But he's about to take a leap of faith that will redefine his life and change the landscape of modern music. Join us as we unravel the remarkable journey of Post Malone, from humble beginnings to global superstardom. He was born Austin Richard Post in Syracuse, New York, and moved to a suburb of Dallas called Grapevine. His father worked doing concessions for the Dallas Cowboys and moonlighting as a DJ. Austin grew up surrounded by his dad's love of rock and the local culture's mix of country and hip-hop. By the time he was 12, Austin had completely mastered Guitar Hero.
There's a lot of people that are like, why play Guitar Hero when you could play real guitar? As long as you develop a love for music, I feel like it's the same.
The only challenge left was to swap the plastic buttons for actual strings. He found that he liked blending genres and that he was good at it. He was so good at it that he won an 8th grade talent show by doing a metal rendition of the Rihanna song Umbrella. Following years, Austin found himself leaning even further into the metal scene. When he was 15, he auditioned to become the newest member of a local metalcore band on the rise called Crown the Empire. Though his guitar string broke in the middle of the audition, and the band would actually go on to become successful without him. Bummer. But throughout high school, he continued to experiment with different genres, from writing and performing folky pop songs in a band that he called Love and Colors, all the way to making an ironic synth-pop parody video for a class project under the name Leon DeChino. It's important to note, Post created this incredible video with the help of his good friend and avid Minecrafter Jason Probst.
I'm like his friend.
It was also around this time that he carefully crafted a rap persona.
Rap name generator.
And he downloaded the free production software Audacity to record his first rap mixtape, which he called Young and After Them Riches.
Malone is on some other shit, but player, that's some old news. Rolled through and showed you that I just bought some dope shoes.
He reflected on this mixtape later and said, "My beats were hard, but I sucked. I had no identity." Despite this, Post's classmates seemed to be pretty impressed. They gave him the superlative, most likely to be famous. But fame would have to wait, because Post was even more excited at the time about working at a Chicken Express and enrolling in Tarrant County Community College to pursue his unbridled love of academics.
I was secretly failing, so I was just like, fuck. My teachers suck ass, this sucks ass. And then Jason says, hey, I'm moving out to LA.
Meanwhile, Post's Leon DeChino collaborator Jason Probst was making his own case for fame by crafting digital minds for a voracious audience on YouTube. By 2013, his channel, which is called Minecraft Universe, had over 1 million subscribers. So, to further his YouTube ambitions, Jason had made up his mind to move from Grapevine to the entertainment capital of the world. When Post caught wind of that, an idea was born. He could abandon his textbooks for an all-or-nothing gamble on a music career in LA. At the time, he had no savings, no connections, and no job prospects. But somehow, he convinced Jason to let him crash in his closet.
Sick, yes.
Things were looking up. And of course, once he got to LA, Post's career totally blasted off. Yeah, right. He never lacked confidence, but Post did lack direction. His lucrative career in music was nowhere to be found, and pretty soon he started struggling to pay for essentials.
Open up Jason's car and look inside, see if there's any quarters.
With time running out fast, before he'd have to give up pursuing his music dream and rejoin the workforce, Post turned to what he did best: networking. By diligently attending these networking events, Post happened to meet an emerging production duo from Atlanta called FKI, which stands for Fucking Kick It, and consisted of Trocon First Down Roberts and Steven Saucelord Rich Bolden. They'd also recently moved to LA, but even back in Atlanta, they'd already started making a pretty big name for themselves. They produced tracks for Travis Porter and Iggy Azalea. Post was basically a nobody at the time, but he managed to gain their respect on musical talent, charisma, and having a really uninhibited personality. In fact, soon enough, he was an integral part of their collective of artists and producers, forming a loosely structured hip-hop group called BLCKVRD. Wait, Black Card, baby. Black Card. And now, with this new group of like-minded musicians, Post, who was going by Austin Richard at the time, moved out of Jason's closet and into a mansion in the San Fernando Valley that they called the White House. Black Card started creating music and performing at nightclubs and parties all around LA. But despite bolstering talented artists, Black Card really wasn't nearing the kind of commercial success Post had in mind. However, he was rapidly developing his hip-hop persona and becoming integrated with a new crowd of influential artists, and these included FKI's producer friends Rex Kudo and FatManKey, both of whom would soon play a really pivotal role in Post's breakout. One fateful day, Post was sitting at a hair salon with some fellow band members getting his hair braided into cornrows, and as the new hairstyle was coming together, Post noticed he looked like a melanin-deficient version of Allen Iverson. This quickly evolved into a whole idea for a song. Post realized he really did feel like a white Allen Iverson, wearing cornrows, doing things his way, and all the while struggling for the recognition he felt he deserved. Fired up about his new look, Post got to work songwriting, a process he's always taken very seriously.
Shit literally comes to me because I write all my songs on the can.
That very same night, the rough verses of White Iverson began to take shape. Words flowing as freely as, well...
It's my special zone, because no one wants to come talk to you while you're taking a shit.
Anyway, inspiration was running through his veins, and Post didn't want to waste any time. So he brought the song to his new producer friend, Rex Kudo, and explained his vision for the track. The two rolled up their sleeves and began recording vocals and arranging instrumentals in the studio. In just a couple days, White Iverson was born. Post felt like he had a potential hit, but he had no following and no record label to help publicize it. So he turned to some friends for advice. The consensus was he should wait and build a strategic release plan, but Post wasn't into that.
I was like, let's just fucking put it up. What's the worst that could happen?
He uploaded the song to SoundCloud under the auto-generated rap name he'd come up with back in high school, and with that, he called it a night. To put this in perspective, in 2015 alone, there were more than 100 million new tracks uploaded to SoundCloud. Of those, few received even more than 1,000 plays. But somehow, this unknown, broke community college dropout was about to launch a multi-billion-dollar career from that one song. This is where Post's new connections and capitalizing on popular music trends would come in huge. Right around 2015, it had gotten way easier to produce music without an expensive studio, and it was also easier than ever to share it, with platforms like Spotify and SoundCloud really growing in popularity. This fostered newfound creative freedom and a deepening affinity for underground artists who were reinventing familiar genres, and there was nowhere that this trend was more prevalent than in hip-hop. At the same time, hip-hop artists like Kanye West, Drake, and Kendrick Lamar were leading a shift in the genre away from toughness and more towards vulnerability and introspection. There was less interest in rappers wearing bulletproof vests and barking like a dog. I go hard, dogs don't do it too late. It's done. And more interest in hearing them sing about their insecurities. Intentionally or not, White Iverson fit right into this emerging landscape.
I would rap about stuff that I wanted. You're not being braggadocious, but you're still cool because you know what all this stuff is.
Post had taken the current hip-hop trend of an atmospheric minimalist beat and creatively paired it with introspective lyrics sung in more of a pop country style.
A lot of auto-tune, like a little Stevie Nicks kind of goatish thing that I do with my throat.
Exactly the kind of trendy but innovative blend listeners were craving. The only challenge now was making sure people actually heard it. This is where his connections really come in. Even though he ignored their advice to wait, Post's new musician friends were supportive when he posted the song, and they eagerly shared the track on social media and caused a chain reaction to kick off. By the very next morning, Post woke up to find the song had already amassed tens of thousands of plays. But this was just the beginning, as one friend's tweet in particular was about to spark something massive. Remember FatManKey from earlier? Key was an aspiring Pokemon card collector and a rising figure in Atlanta's hip-hop scene.
All this shit that's going on for real, like, came, like, through him.
Along with some other producers and artists from Post's New Circle, Key was in the studio that day, watching Post record the track, and when Key tweeted the song that night, it caught the attention of a very powerful sorcerer that he had worked with a couple years earlier, Wiz Khalifa. Wiz liked the song so much he retweeted it to his own followers, and soon after that, Mac Miller and other prominent hip-hop artists took notice and began sharing the song too. So, before Post even knew it, the plays started racking up into the millions. But even with this incredible exposure, lasting success was far from guaranteed. It would not be the first time a quirky white guy had 15 minutes of hip-hop fame,
Shade with the gauge and vanilla with the 9.
only to fade right back into obscurity. Post's next moves would be pivotal if he wanted to remain in the spotlight. So, with a budget of just $5,000 and a borrowed Rolls Royce, Post hired first-time director Van Alpert. With a small crew, they drove down to the Arizona desert to capture the dreamy, atmospheric tone of the song on video. Despite the success of the song on SoundCloud, there's no way Post could have expected the incredible reception once the video came out. It instantly started racking up tons of views and reaching a way bigger audience than before. Soon enough, he was catching the attention of record labels like a French fry in a room full of seagulls.
Mine.
Just a month after he released the music video, Post signed a record deal with Republic Records, joining names like Drake and Nicki Minaj, along with other rising stars at the time like Ariana Grande and The Weeknd. This, right here, was the moment he had been waiting for. White Iverson just made it to the pros. Things were really looking good, but he definitely couldn't rest on this accomplishment alone. He had just one hit under his belt, and his follow-up album would really be the true litmus test. Otherwise, he faced forever being known as just that white guy with the Iverson song. But he didn't have long to think about any of that just yet. The same month he signed with Republic, he got an invitation to perform at Kylie Jenner's 18th birthday party, possibly the biggest private event of the whole year. And it would be filled with A-list actors, all-star athletes, music icons, you name it. Post was a newcomer in front of a crowd of celebrities, but he knew there was no room to be shy or modest. In typical Post Malone fashion, he put on an uninhibited and super impassioned performance that caught the eye of a lot of the guests, including Kylie's brother-in-law at the time, Chris Humphries. Wait, no, what year was this? Oh, right, Kanye West. Kanye was so impressed, he invited Post to Rick Rubin's studio, where they would collaborate on the song Fade for his upcoming album, The Life of Pablo. Though Post proceeded to nail the cameo, he did later describe working with two of his idols at this stage in his career as the scariest experience ever.
Never cut that. This is fixed out immediately.
But that was only the beginning of a whole year that turned out to be filled with big opportunities and chances to collaborate with big names. From featuring on 50 Cent's new track,
Y'all trying to fuck me over. Right before I came to this bitch high.
to touring with Justin Bieber,
I was like, what a good guy.
You and Justin really developed quite a friendship, huh?
He's a good guy.
things began moving way faster than Post could have ever imagined. All the while, the anticipation for his all-important debut album was rapidly building, and he had found little time to actually work on it. Pressure was mounting for its release, and the expectations were sky high, so Post was actually second-guessing his abilities a little bit. To make things worse, his newfound popularity faced increasing backlash. With critics labeling him a poser and accusing him of cultural appropriation, it seemed like only a matter of time before the cancel mob descended on him. Post went on The Breakfast Club, where even the host's softball questions had a subtle undertone of scrutiny.
What are you doing for the Black Lives Matter movement? White guy who identifies as black. Are you afraid as a white rapper that you may be considered a culture vulture? FYI, I think all white people with cornrows look stupid.
More than that, he was conspicuously excluded from XXL Magazine's freshman class that year, which recognizes the most promising new hip-hop stars. However, as an executive at Malone's label once said, he is the Donald Trump of hip-hop, because things that should have killed his career have only made him bigger. Post simply had to push aside these critics. He buckled down, and in December 2016, he released his debut album, Stoney. It's safe to say the album was not a flop like Post had feared. Not only that, a few of the songs actually reached the Billboard Top 100. These were I Fall Apart, Deja Vu, and the album's biggest hit,
Congratulations.
which peaked at number 8. Stoney went on to sell more than 2 million copies in less than a year, and it broke Michael Jackson's 34-year-old record for the most time on the Billboard Top 200 chart. With his future work, Post would break even more records and go on to collect countless accolades and Grammy nominations, but the chapter of struggling for recognition was finally over. He had officially made it. From scrounging under the seat of his friend's car to find quarters for beer, all the way to having a vending machine and an endless supply, Post Malone's rise to fame was as incredible as it was improbable.